Okay, good morning, everybody. Um, Thank you all very much for being here today for the virtual launch of Let the Story Be Told. I'm Councillor Shane Moore. I'm the leader of Hartlepool Borough Council, and I'm pleased to see so many people who have logged on for this launch today. I do have just a few housekeeping notes to make, and then I'll pass over to our Chief Executive, Jill Alexander. So this meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and on the council's website. So please keep your microphone on mute. And if you wish to speak, please raise your hand at the bottom of the screen. If you're unable to raise your hand via Teams, we will open microphones to enable people to speak. That's for those who are on the phone. Please don't use the chat stream during the meeting. However, if at the end you wish to leave any comments or contact details, you are welcome to do so. And we hope everything works and runs smoothly, but please do bear with us because this is still quite new to us all, as I'm sure it is to many of you too. Okay, at this point then, I'll pass over to Jill and she'll kick proceedings off. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to have so many of you join us for this launch of Let the Story Be Told. Coronavirus, I think we would all agree, has changed the world. It's changed the way we live our lives, and in a way that few of us would have predicted 6 months ago. Our world has been turned upside down in so many ways. By protecting ourselves and each other from this virus, this terrible virus, it has affected our jobs, our children's education, our ability to see and spend time with the people we love. It has changed everything for us. And as we've all been working really hard to respond to this virus, to protect the community, to protect the vulnerable, it has struck us that we are living through an important period in history, a period where through our experiences, we are learning so much about how we should live together, so much that we might want to pass on to future generations. It has been extraordinarily hard for people. But it has also been true that it has shown that in Hartlepool, in so many ways, that at times like this, the community comes together. It comes together to help each other, to look after each other through small acts of kindness, through acts of mercy, through keeping an eye on each other. And it is a time when we have revealed so much that Hartlepool has at its heart a huge spirit that is concerned for the vulnerable and wants to make sure that everyone is looked after. And it has been quite remarkable to see the response that we've had in the town. Do you know, one of the things that makes us human is that we like to tell stories. We like to tell stories to make sense of what we've experienced, to explain to people what life was like, what it felt like, how it made us feel at a particular point in our history. We don't just tell those stories to explain to people what it was like, however. We tell those stories to pass on messages to future generations, and that is how history is made. And it seems to us that so much of what has happened to us over this last few months, so much of what we've experienced together, is something that we need to start telling the story about. And we often do that in all sorts of ways. If you think about prehistoric man or women, they left their stories as paintings on caves. Others have told stories through ballads, through music, through song, through poetry. But what's been important is people have captured those experiences in ways which give expression to what's happened and in ways in which we can pass on tips to the future. And so in all of this, we think it's important to create a bit of space, to create a bit of time for us to reflect, for us to start sharing our stories. And we as a council have a responsibility for that. We have a local history archive in which we have gathered throughout generations the history of this town. You can go into that archive and find so much of how people told the stories of what happened on the bombardment of the headland, what's happened at different times in our history through World War I, World War II. And now we need to gather the stories of what's happened as this town came together to fight coronavirus. We need to tell those stories in a way which helps people explain what we learned through that experience, and so that we can pass on tips for future generations about what we hope our tomorrow might look like. So we really want you to help us do that. We'd like you to encourage people to tell their stories. Often people are happy to tell it to friends, but perhaps not happy to tell their stories more widely. But we really want people to be confident to try and find ways to give expression to what they experienced during this virus, and what tips we would pass on to each other. And we want to weave those stories together as we go through this, to try and tell the whole town story through exhibitions, and also by commissioning a playwright, so that when that great day comes, when we can reopen the Town Hall Theatre again, we can put on a play which tells our story. So I'm here today to encourage you to tell your story, and to encourage you to tell those that you know to tell their stories. They might want to do it through a poem, a video, a song, or a diary entry, something that's helped them make sense of what's going on and help them stop and reflect on what they are learning about what's important in life and what they've learnt about that through this virus. So please do send your stories to us. We're about to show a little bit of a video, a little bit of an information video about how you can send those stories to us. But the important thing is that this will be about word of mouth. This will be about all of us taking responsibility to try and get 10 people to feel confident enough to pass on their stories. If we could all do that, if the number of people who've joined us today could take responsibility to encourage at least 10 people to tell their story, then that will grow exponentially if others also will take that responsibility. So here's some information which will be out there very soon, which will give people a repository, a place to send their stories. And I'll hand over now to our technical assistants who will now show you this video, which gives you the important information you need about how you can encourage people to collaborate to tell their stories. Thank you for listening, and I really look forward to hearing your story, and I will be sharing mine very soon. So let the story be told. That's a video clip you can start tweeting, you can start sharing on Facebook, you can start encouraging people to understand what they can do to help tell their story. We have here with us today Maxine Craig, who chairs Love Hartlepool. And anyone who knows Maxine will know just how much she loves Hartlepool and how much she wants to help tell Hartlepool's story. She has shared with us already her video, her story, if you like, about why about what living through coronavirus has meant for her and what it has meant for her in terms of being a Hartlepoolian who is so proud of this town and what it has done. So we will now attempt with our technical team to now show Maxine's story, and then we will open up the conversation for questions and comments.
Well, you could see now, but then it says 19 there, so I don't know whether that's 19 plus the 9. I think it might be. So that's not...
But I will always remember about our lockdown as we encountered the coronavirus. Hi, I'm Maxine Craig, and I'm the voluntary chair of the Love Hartlepool work in our town. Welcome to my garden. The garden for me has been a place that I will always remember about our lockdown as we encountered the coronavirus. It's been a place where I've sat and thought about all the things I was worried about. I have elderly parents in care homes, both of whom now have had coronavirus, but luckily have survived. And I have an adult daughter with asthma, who we've also been extremely worried about. So the garden's been a place for me where I've sat and thought about all the difficulties and challenges that we were all facing. And it's been a part of me coping with the monotony of actually being locked down, being isolated from my family and my friends and from the work that I do. I've discovered a new interest in watching the little birds that have landed and lived in our garden during this time, and that's been a really nice part of coming out of lockdown as we've begun to get a little bit more of our freedoms back and trying to stay safe and healthy. So the sun's shining this morning on this video, and as I move you to the other side of the garden that's currently in the shade, I think it sort of signifies for me the changing sort of scenery that we've had and the changing situation that we found ourselves in. So this is the other side of my garden with some hydrangeas that are bursting beautifully into flower as we're in July, mid-July. And I suppose for me they represent hope. I've been so proud of people in the town and so proud of our health services and all our essential services that have kept us going. And I suppose what the garden represents for me has been the fact that although it's been really difficult, things continue to move. The garden moves on, life moves on, and we've all had to come to terms with a different way of living at the moment. But this bush, I suppose, just represents for me that out of all of that difficulty can come something beautiful.
Okay, thank you. At this point then, I'd just like to open it up a little bit and to ask anybody who's present if you have any kind of comments or short stories that you would like to share with us today, just to get this process started. if there is anybody, if you just raise your hand, even if it's just something you've really you've seen other people do, or something you've done, or something somebody has done for you throughout this period that you would really like to recognise and say thank you for. If there is anybody. We've got Mark Rycroft.
Hi, morning everyone. I don't mind following Maxine. That was a lovely video actually, and sums everything up. I think it's a really good introduction to what you're trying to achieve here, and I fully support it. I have my own challenging situations at home and at work. As you'll know where I work, I live. I've got a wife, 2 children, a 2.5-year-old and a 10-year-old, and both at home. And I've learned a lot about myself, my children, my life. About homeschooling. I've learned a lot about. I've seen my little 2-year-old flourish. A bit like the hydrangeas, really, flourish into a beautiful human being over the last, if you think about the last 14, 15 weeks at home, working at home, and I have been working at home. I've seen that little person flourish, along with my son growing into a young man. He's 10 on Sunday, and it's just been, it's been a wonderful experience, challenging as well, obviously, with pressures at work, pressures at home. But I'm really proud of my family and proud of myself, what we've achieved. And through that time, my family live in Southport, so we've kept in contact with them. But on a positive note, through that time, I learned how to ride a unicycle. So there's a couple of videos on YouTube that show my journey from falling off lots of times, lots of bruises, to riding along Headland Promenade on the unicycle as well. So that was a challenge, and a thoroughly enjoyable one at the same time as well. So, but I think just to end for me, I think from putting my professional hat on, I think there's a lot we can do in the shopping centre to help this process. We've got a nice big blank wall opposite O2 at the side of B&M Bargains, and this is something we can take offline, to be fair, but I think there's something we can do in the shopping centre to help this grow, help this flourish, and not only just to gather those thoughts and views and things, but also to perhaps showcase all of that at the end as well. So I'm thinking about people just bringing along something and sticking it on the wall, or a post box of some kind, that just a memory box. I don't know. There's some things we can do but I think there's something we can do in the shopping centre to help push this forward. So please do, if you're interested, please have a chat with me offline. We can work that through, because I really want to champion this as much as I can. So thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you for sharing that, Mark, and for putting a smile on my face. I wasn't expecting any of the new skills to have been learned through lockdown to be riding a unicycle. So that's a new one. You raised some great points there, and I think in my own story, some of the funniest or oddest moments throughout this whole period have involved my own children, from being at home. Now, whether that on one occasion, and when I tried working from home, and I was on a call with other leaders from right across the country, and I foolishly didn't lock the conservatory door, and I had my 5-year-old daughter burst in screaming and shouting at one point at my 11-year-old son, and then plonk herself on my knee. And I think many of us have probably had that type of experience in trying to work from home. But then kind of a really odd moment was, again, with my daughter. I was about halfway through the lockdown period. She was clearly getting frustrated. She was missing her friends. She really loved school, and she wanted to be back at school. And she turned to me and my wife at one point and asked, what we did last time for fun. And we weren't quite sure what she meant. And obviously, as you tried to tease it out of her, she wanted to know what we did last time we all had to stay in lockdown to kind of occupy ourselves. And trying to explain to a 5-year-old that actually this never happened again, certainly not before, and certainly not in our lifetime. And she's as bright as a button, but I guess it's the innocence of a child, really, isn't it? You don't realise how significant this period has been and how really odd it's been as an experience for everybody. I think following on from Mark's thing of learning a new skill, I'd share one thing I've been spending quite a bit of my spare time doing, much to my wife's annoyance. She asked me to buy a barbecue during the lockdown period, and I went out. I didn't buy a barbecue in the end. I bought a smoking oven. I love smoked food. So after spending quite a lot of time on watching YouTube, I decided I was going to take the plunge, and I bought this smoking oven. And I'll never admit how much to my wife I paid for it, by the way. But I've been really enjoying learning to cook smoked food, whether that be brisket, various chicken dishes, and just, I don't cook normally. I don't get any enjoyment out of it, but this I really have, and I probably would never have even considered taking something new up had we not had a little bit of spare time, and we not had the opportunity to or been forced into trying to occupy ourselves a little bit more. I just wondered if there is anybody else who would like to share anything before, or if there are any questions about what we're trying to do before we move on. Anybody? Okay. Well, there's plenty of time for people to get in touch with us, and if you're a little bit camera shy, you can certainly write in or email to us, and we'll look forward to hearing from you all. I'll pass back to Jill as we go into the closing remarks for this event.
Thank you, Shane, and thank you for those who've contributed, and thank you, Maxine, for sharing that video. One of the things that I noticed during lockdown, if you think about it, we went through a number of seasons, didn't we? We went through, it was just about coming out of winter when this started, and we're now kind of, well, in a British summer. And we had some very hot periods, and during the time lots was happening to the ground. And a lot of the ground was being tilled and disturbed and broken up. And it feels a bit like, to me, that happened to us during this crisis, that the very ground that we stood on was being shaken, that we lost our sense of the certainties of life. But then Maxine's video shows so much that when you break ground, new things will grow. And so much of what we need to try and capture through this exercise is, yes, holding the lament that people have about what's been lost through this, and the real impact this has had on how we, on our sense of purpose. But we also need to hold on to the hope that we have, because when ground is broken, some amazing flowers grow, and flowers that you might not have expected to grow in all sorts of interesting places. So Mark's suggestion that we use a shop front in the Middleton Grange is such a fantastic idea that when we started this launch this morning, we wouldn't have thought of, but it's such a great idea for us to capture and to use that. And this is an example, in a sense, that we can put an idea on the table, but the important thing is how people then pick it up and run with it. And that's why this launch has been so important to us, in terms of having as many people as possible take some responsibility for making this happen. We're here to provide a resource, but the important thing is that we all bring what we can to the table to help Hartlepool tell the story of this particular point in history and what we learnt about what was valuable in life and what we should value in our lives as we go forward. So thank you all for joining us today. Some of you will know that part of my story has been preparing for retirement. I hadn't expected to stay this long in Hartlepool. I should be now preparing for walking the Himalayas, and all of that has been put on hold. And I had to extend my notice of my period for working with the council to beyond that which was originally anticipated, and that was a bit of a shaking of the ground for me and for my family. It has been really hard. I cannot articulate or overestimate just how hard it has been for staff in this council, and just how proud I am of the response that they mustered in mobilising every single resource we had to make sure that we could protect people from this virus as best we could, make sure we were making good decisions, even if sometimes it was in conflict with what national policy was saying, and having the courage to do that, but also working as best we possibly could to protect the most vulnerable and to work with others. And we've learned a lot through that process about what it means to be a council, which I hope will be carried forward into the future. And of course, the future will be from the 7th of September, Denise McGuckin, who I will be literally passing on a baton to prior to the 7th of September, when she becomes the new managing director for the council. And that happens with all my prayers and my best wishes for everybody in this town. It is such a remarkable place, and wherever I go, there will always be a huge space for the people of Hartlepool in my heart. And I'm really pleased and delighted to be able to hand on the baton to Denise and such a fantastic team of staff and of senior leaders. And I just now want to hand over to her, because she has a few words she wants to share with you in terms of shaping this next step in the journey for Hartlepool. So thank you all for joining from me, and I look forward to hearing your stories and hopefully coming to see the play that will one day be in the Town Hall Theatre, when we can switch off the blue light and open it up for the public and for us all to enjoy being together again as one great community. Thank you. Denise.
Thank you, Jill. Good morning, everybody. What a very moving morning we've had. Maxine, that video was lovely, really lovely. Thank you for sharing that. And also, Mark, your thoughts and emotions as well came across strong. I remember watching your 2-year-old on one of your Twitters. I found it quite funny where she was climbing over you. I also wanted just to say I couldn't have been more proud of all the people who've worked for Hartlepool Council, but this isn't just about the council. This is about you and how we've pulled together as a one town and actually really worked together to support and help our most vulnerable. The work that happened with the staff in the Community Support Hub was been unbelievable, stepped up over a weekend, couldn't have faulted it. And you know, they just went that extra mile and did it every single day. The bin men who were out there no matter what, and the wonderful pictures we got from the children showing us their support again. Really, really wonderful. And, you know, more than anything, I just couldn't have been more proud of you as the residents of Hartlepool and how you've actually supported everyone in this. And we've pulled together as a town, and let's not lose this momentum. This is important that we register and record everything and all our emotions today, but let's really keep the momentum as one town pulling together and make sure that we build on the work that Jill's been doing as Chief Executive, and you all continue, you know, as one town to take us forward and grow ourselves out of this. And I will now hand over to Shane, who will close the meeting.
Thank you, Denise. So just as we go into closing then, on the left-hand side over there, there is a little tab on Teams which says Files, and there's details within that section of Teams of how you can get in touch with us and share your stories. And there's obviously we'll be asking and reminding people via social media as well, and how they can share that. As we close, we're just going to play one more video, which, as we were preparing today, Ed from our comms team asked us to think about a piece of poetry or art or anything else that has really spoken to us during this period. And I realised I'd been listening to a lot more music than I usually do throughout this. And there was one piece, or rather one song, that I found myself listening to a lot during this whole period, and certainly during the lockdown period. It started off in life as a column in the Chicago Tribune, which was then later picked up by a filmmaker and turned into a musical piece. It debuted, it landed in the UK charts in 1999. And I think the wording within the song, there's lots of really positive messages. And we've gone through experiences through these past couple of months where I can really take solace in some of the words that are in here. And they can be a little bit, well, not a little bit. It's a very positive song, I think. So I'll share that with you as we leave. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I really do look forward to seeing and reading and hearing your stories. Thank you.